Anybody not know the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers?
Which variation is this?
I said the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's the specific one. It's the specific one. These are the folks I grew up with. They're my childhood heroes, always and forever. Does everyone not know? So if I say things like Megazord, it's like gonna make sense. And you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. Don't worry, I've tweaked it a little bit. It's all right. It's gonna be okay. I'll figure it out. So today's lecture is gonna be on TDD. For those that have not Googled it yet, shame on you. But TDD just stands for test-driven development, right? So I guess to summarize what that really is what you guys do right now is you basically fork a lab, right? And then you run the code, and then what happens? You start run and learn. You just run, learn immediately, and you see all this red. You're like, cool, I know what I need to do, right? So these tests will literally drive your development. Like, the tests are essentially a interesting way to say that these are the features that I want in my application, right? Sometimes when you see the test, it says that this method should do this, right? This method should do this. In the same way that if you were working in the real world and you had a client that said, hey, I want the application to do this. It should have this feature. I want all my users to be able to do something, right? And then luckily for you, Learn, in all its magic, has basically written all these tests for you where you can just run Learn, you can run RSpec, and you can see exactly what's failing and what it should be producing. All right, does that make sense so far? Kind of like what that connection is? Is that a good high-level overview of what we're about to do? All right, cool. So I will now peel back the magic and the wool of Learn and RSpec, and we will write our own, and we'll figure out why tests are useful, how cool they are, and how easy they are to write. All right, so let's do it. So the first thing I like to do is I like to talk about the Power Rangers, right? Because the Power Rangers are like this, literally the best TV show to ever possibly exist in the 90s. But the second thing about the Power Rangers is they form a team, right? So you have what? The red, blue, black, pink, and yellow Ranger. And all of them, they always lose. Always. Until they come together and form the Megazord. And then we all know how it goes down from there. Right? Just kicks the bad guy in the butt. Show's over. Rita's done. Goes back into the pit she came from. And then the next episode, just like Scooby-Doo, just pull the mask off. Never expected. So the reason TDD is really important is because if for whatever reason Red Ranger's not feeling very good, it's like, guys, listen, I know the world's in trouble, but I've got the flu. I can't make it in today. What do you think happens? They can't form the Megazord, right? They can't form Megazord. And like I said earlier, they always lose. And it's terrible. But the point I'm trying to make is, right, in the same way that code always works together, you guys are all building out your sweet command line applications right now. And who has a method that calls on at least 2 or 3 minimum other methods you've written? You have a method that calls on 2 or 3 other methods? No? Only one method calls one method? Or none of your methods call any other method? All right, they call me. I was looking at Eric in the back, but thank you for answering. I know my line of sight is weird because I have like this crazy cock eye. Oh, you had a question? Oh, you just answer. You just continue to raise your hand. Very good. That must have been tiring. I'm sorry. Yeah. So the reason we write tests is because we want to be able to, right, just like we talked about in some of the blogs about binding pry and how we can debug, we want to be able to pause our code. We want to jump into the method, right, to make sure it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Except that's great when you jump into the method, you're testing just that one method. Right? You're figuring out, you're pausing that one method, and you're like, I want to get in there and I want to figure out what's going on. But with writing tests, you can figure out exactly if your method is returning the value that you want. So that you can kind of really quickly see of all your methods, do they all return the value that you want? As opposed to like jumping in there, testing that one line, and then coming out and then running it again. Does that make sense? All right, so let's write some example stuff. You guys seen the REPL before? Oh, whoa. This is like from before, huh? Wow, it saved it. All right, cool. Let's keep it then, you know? So I have some pre-written code here, right? Very complicated. So I'm going to explain to you very quickly. Whoa, what's that? Bloop. All right, so all this is just like the Power Rangers, right? You've got blue, you've got pink, you've got the white ranger, the red ranger, and the black ranger, right? And all these methods do is just return a string. So far, so good? All right. Who's not following? It's like week 3 of Model 1. All right, cool. Ooh. All right, so what we want to do is we want to assemble all of them. All right, so let's do that. So I can have a method called assemble. All right, and what? Huh? I can call this Megazord. You know what? Assemble the Zord. Right? Cool. Just so we're clear, like that case-sensitive stuff, that's not proper Ruby, but this will run. All right? Just, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm teaching you. I should do it the right way. Assemble the Zord. It's not as exciting, but we'll get the job done. So, what is this going to do? It has to call on all the other methods, right? Who we got? We got blue. What else? Plus pink. What else we got? Plus white, plus red, plus black. Yeah? And what's going to happen here? What happens when I run this code?
Come to the Yellow Ranger.
Shh. The Yellow Ranger is very cool, and we'll talk about the Yellow Ranger later. Anyone know what's going to happen when I run?
He concatenate that in a string and then return it.
Absolutely not. Because what's going on here? I've just defined all these methods.
But then another method.
Am I missing something?
Yeah, call.
Try putting spaces in between plus red, plus black.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. J. What's going to happen here? Nothing, because I don't actually ever call this method, right? You make this mistake all the time. All the time. You're like, why isn't this running? I'm like, it is. Why am I not seeing this? Because I'm not calling the method. So how do we call it? Help me out here. So, oh man, come on. We got to get a little more enthusiastic than that, right? We've got to assemble the Megazord. Let's do it. And then there it is, assembled. They're all there. Just like compacted into this little control room. Have you seen this? Have you seen the show? Or like all like sit next to each other. It's wild. I don't know. Either way, so we have assembled the Zord here, right? Cool. Done. Now, imagine you are working on an application about assembling the Megazord, right? How many of you have projects right now that are over 100, 150, 200 lines of code? Wow, it's like less than that? You guys have like really amazing refactoring skills. It's like clean, right? Just straight up, just like 80 lines. I built Netflix in 80 lines of code, right? Come on now. So it's like pretty complicated, right? Who of you just like enjoy working with a partner? Who thinks it'd be more amazing if you work with more people and more features and more problems to tackle? Right? Awesome. So in real life, right, you'll probably work in a somewhat small team, maybe 4 or 5 up to like 10 people, like per team, per feature that you're kind of working on, right? And so when that starts to happen, you can already see that I'm like starting to scroll through this code and that I can't see it in one clean snapshot. So what you're going to wind up happening is someone is going to say, hey, what happened to the Yellow Ranger, right? Or a client might say, you know what's a really good feature to add? more features. Like, let's just add more Rangers, right? That's just how it works. Like, more Rangers, more power, more wins, more episodes, and they would have never canceled the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's probably where they went wrong. But that's beside the point. So let's do it. Let's just add the let's add the Yellow Ranger, right? We got def yellow. Help me out here. What are we putting? Oh man. I was scared that it was a bit confusing. So it's like, cool, made a method, created the Yellow Ranger, I'm ready to ship it, let's go to production and git push master, right? Done. Is this gonna work? Absolutely! Of course it's gonna work, except the Yellow Ranger isn't really there, right? So if I had a test, however, that said that Yellow Ranger should be there, right? Like I wrote somewhere on the bottom, right, that assemble the Megazord should equal, right, all of this plus yellow, right? What would I get here when I run it now? False. That's very fast for me to see without looking at any of the code, like, hey, I shipped the feature, this is what it should be, let me run it, false. And then I'm like, all right, cool, what am I missing, right? And what if it like had like some cool message like missing Yellow Ranger, right? And then you saw this, right? And you saw missing Yellow Ranger, like, oh, okay, got it. Like I know what's going on here. I know what I need to do. I know what code I need to add. And that's very quickly, I can just add yellow. All right, so tests are useful, right? Oops. Tests are useful, right? And that's kind of like a very complex example of like how tests can very quickly understand. If I'm building a new feature, I'm trying to ship something, I'm trying to add something, as long as I have my tests in place, I can quickly see what's going on, right? If you remember, right, we can revert back in time, the White Ranger was actually the Green Ranger, right? If you like pay attention to the storyline, that's not really important, but it's fine. That's a true fact, all right? Just Google it, all right? So cool, right? Somebody was like, actually, let's be historically accurate, and let's, before that transformation happened, let's reference something else, right? And another dev, not you, because you guys never make mistakes, just decided to do this. They're like, you know what? Got it. Feature came down. The White Ranger should have been the Green Ranger. No big deal. I'll make that change. So I went in, changed the Ranger. I'm done. And then what? I can just git add commit, force push to master. Right? What's going to happen? What happens now? Undefined variable or method white. This is actually a pretty decent error message, right? Because it'll tell me right here in the REPL, I don't know if you can see this. Can you guys see this? In the REPL, right? So it's like this file right here, line 26. In assemble the Zord method, there's some sort of undefined variable method white, right here. In assemble the Zord, line 26, white. If I got these kind of error messages, I would immediately know what was going on, right? So I can just run these tests super fast to see, oh snap, this is where it's going on. This is the one change broke something else that I wrote. This is only 30 lines of code. Once I get into 100 lines of code and I change something or I like add something to an old method, how do I know that somewhere else where that method's being called that I don't obviously remember or somebody else wrote doesn't break my whole application? As long as I can guarantee what each thing will do, and I know what every single thing is going to do all the time, if I make a change, I can run a test to see if they all pass, and that way I know my application's not broken. Did that make sense? Raise your hand if I lost you on that. Raise your hand if you followed that. Raise your hand if you're just like playing on your computer. Nice, very good. I see it, by the way.
So when you go to testing, should we be testing for each individual piece or just like the overall file?
That's a very good question. If you test every single piece, right? And they all pass. What does that say about your product?
Pass.
Your product should pass. But then you should also test the overall outcomes of your product. And that is going to be something else. That's called behavioral-driven development, right? How your product should perform. And we'll get into BDD as you learn more about the internet and Rails. All right, that's actually really cool. But right now, let's focus on individual method testing so we can kind of like make everything work individually as a piece. Because then you form the Megazord, and then you win. Check. So it's like developer way of life. That's all. When you first get your job, walk in, shake your hand with your boss, form the Megazord, and then we'll win. And they'll be like, I'm so glad I hired you. Does anyone have any questions on the concept here? And like what TDD is? Cool. Let's demystify it. So I'm going to show you something. It should be some sweet, sweet code. All right. Boom. Let's do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that, do a little of this. You see this? Yeah? All right, cool. So the first thing I do is when I get a new file, right, I get a new code block, I get a new structure, I get a new directory, what do? What? What should I do when I get brand new code that I should be developing on?
You should run it to see what happens.
That is, I like where your head's at. You should just run it and see what happens. How would you run it?
The Ruby file, I just run Ruby the file and see what happens. Or I check where the dependencies are and go to the root dependency.
Exactly. I would look at all of the code, right? Just kind of see what's happening, if I can understand what's happening. So when I run it, if it just makes sense to me. All right, so the first thing I'm going to look at is just top to bottom. I've got a gem file here, right? So the source is where I'm going to download all my gems from. And here we're getting these two cool new gems, right? Have you seen this before? What is RSpec?
It allows you to test, build tests out.
Right. RSpec is just a gem that allows you to write and execute tests for your Ruby application, right? RSpec expectations, I'm going to go into here in a little bit. But to summarize, it gives you additional matchers for your RSpec. And so let me show you, because that probably didn't make much sense. Boom! Look at that. Cool. So we all have seen, right, when you run your RSpec, you get a bunch of like pass fails. Whoa, too close? All right, what I mean by matchers is I can have a new order, right, in my order class, and I assign it to a variable order, and I have a method called addEntry, and that's going to create a new line item. That new line item is going to create a new item, and the item has a price, and that money, it's going to have a money class. Wow, that's wild. And it's going to be $1.11 in USD. That's wild. And I can add another entry. And then I can have order, and there's another method that I'm assuming adds the total of all the monies in there. And I can have that money be $5.55. It's going to equate to, right? But there's also other things, right? There's like EQL, right? And then there's the double equal. They're slightly different, and I'm going to show you a little bit what that means, right? There's 2B. There's 2B an instance of. So basically, the matchers are what am I expecting, and then what should I be testing for? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be this? Kind of, an instance of. These are all different methods to test what I expect that value to be. Does that make sense? So that's all what the matchers really do. Let me get rid of this. Let's just leave it on this. Oh, wow. Wow. So cool. All right. Cool, back to this. And then, of course, everyone's favorite, right? Our boy, pry. We have program here. All it's doing is requiring pry. And I have this sweet method, right? You guys go over this with Dick? Cool. And then this README file, which is currently empty. That's all it does. So without even running it, do you have an idea of what's going on? All I have is I'm going to install RSpec at some point. I have pry to debug, and I have one method that I'm going to pry the out of, right? Check. Cool. Cool. So the first thing we want to do is we want to actually get RSpec in here. So if I see a gem file, what's like the first hint that I should be doing? I need to install the gems, right? That's not going to work. Boo, boo, boo. Money. So once I bundled, right, look, it gets all these other gems. I talked about dependencies, right? So just because there's 3 gems in my gem file and I have all these extra gems, it's because those gems depend on other gems, and then I just install all the dependencies as well, right? Now, if I want RSpec in my file structure and I want to run it, I just initialize RSpec. So RSpec init. And this is what it's going to do. It's going to create a .rspec file. It's going to create a spec folder with the spec helper.rb. So let's take a look. Let's take a deep dive into that. Boom. Cool. So we have RSpec here. Let's see what it does. All it does is this -- require spec helper. Interesting. Let's take a look. So this seems to be the spec helper file. What this is doing is it's going to go and configure how your RSpec is understanding everything, right? So you can read through it. The comments are really good in terms of what it is doing and how it explains it. But the biggest thing you should really know is that in my spec folder, I'm looking for a file that has any name followed by an underscore spec. Right? So let's say I wanted to make a test file, right? I'll make a new file. And if I just put test.rb, is that going to work? No. I need to put test underscore spec.rb. That's how RSpec is going to know that this is going to be a spec file. And when I run RSpec, it's going to look in the spec folder for anything with underscore spec in it, and it's going to run it.
Does the first part matter too? Does it have to match up with the...
The first part does not have to match up now. But it will tell me what folder it is. So let's say I want to make different spec files. I can have test1 underscore spec, test2 underscore spec, so that I can start specifying which part of my application I want to test. Because if you see your error message, it tells you what file it's coming from, right? And then the line and the method that's giving the ultimate error. And so that's how you can break it down a little bit easier, but we'll just call it test because I'm boring and I'm lazy. No? Fine. We'll do it the right way. Our application is called program.rb, so we'll put program underscore spec.rb. Sorry it's so small. It's hard for me to zoom that in. Cool. Everyone tracking so far? Yes? Yes, please. Thank you for that one person who is tracking. That's what I'm here for. All right. So now we need to write some sweet spec files, right? We want to write some tests. So has anyone peeked under the hood and seen their spec file from Learn? All right. How do I write it?
Expect.
Expect?
Yeah.
Oh, like lost the mouse over here. Huh? So the first thing is expect?
Probably not. That's just something else.
It's definitely a keyword, right? So the first thing we should do, like anything, is we need to describe what's about to happen, right? Because that's what tests are for. So this describe is going to be like the title of all of the tests that follow, right? So we're testing the method is palindrome. And then what that's going to do is what? This is like what we're going to be testing for now, right? Huh? Yeah. Should be true if the input is actually a palindrome, right? And that is going to do something. This is where that sweet expect comes from. It's going to expect the method that I'm trying to call is palindrome. Oh, not is palindrome or just palindrome? It's just called palindrome, right? Cool. Right? And what is that doing?
Should expect to be given a palindrome to get out.
Anybody else?
To be true.
Okay. We could talk sweet English. But it takes an argument though, right?
The argument dot reverse expect.
Whoa. Let's just give it an argument, right? What do we want to test? What kind of word do we want to test where we know is an actual palindrome, like lols or something, right? Race car?
LOL.
Lols was great. LOL was great, right? Race car?
EV.
You are technically correct. You're also like classic, you know? Race car is what everyone does. Except last time I taught this class, what do we have?
Man, a planet, a banana.
That is not a palindrome. We had poop, right? Poop. Poop is a palindrome. But I will take Brian's very good suggestion. The classic, right? To be.
That's too old. Let's find something new. The old, the better.
It's vintage.
And we want it to be true? Is that what we're saying? Cool. And then, of course, I have an end here, and then I need to end my describe. Anyone see any problems with this? Huh? Say it?
Remove the is underscore and describe.
Oh, you're right. Oof, embarrassing. Cool. Anything else?
That wouldn't actually change.
No, that's just the header. That's not actually gonna like, this right here is what the test will actually run. These are all just sweet comments.
Is 2B 2 separate words?
2B? 2B are 2 separate words, yes. So 2 is a method, and then B is kind of like the secondary parameter for 2. Because you can have 2 equal, and you can have 2 something else, and all that stuff. Because if you were paying attention, I would have showed you the expectation. But, you know, it's fine. I guess I didn't show it.
Do you have to say, like, is when expect when trying to be false?
Yeah. We can have that. All right, so if I run this, how do I run it?
RSpec.
All right, what am I going to get? Fail, right? But wait, why did I fail, though? No method error, undefined method palindrome.
We didn't require it.
Well, the method is right here in my program file.
With the connectors.
So, yes, I need to, in fact, bring it in here. Right? So, who's seen this, right? Like, in that same folder program? Is that right? Who knows, like, how to do this?
Isn't there 2 dots?
Huh? So I should go up one, right? Yeah. Let's take a look. Bloop. I'm in my spec, right? If I put this dot slash, what's going on? What does that mean? The dot is actually current directory, right? And that's where I am right now. I need to go double dot, and that's where it is, and then the program is right there. So let's do that. Double dot, and then program.rb. Right? Because it's a Ruby file reading Ruby files, should be okay. Check. All right, cool. So, what's next?
Try it again. See what happens.
That's right. I write one sweet line of code, and I test again. Cool. So now, I'm not getting that no method error. I'm highlighting this because I know that it's like a little weird to read, unless this is okay. Who wants to highlight and who doesn't?
How do you answer that?
Yeah. Who wants to highlight and who doesn't? All right. You know, it's just say it with your chest. You know, who wants to highlight? We'll just use hands, I guess. You know, civilized society over here. Cool. So, what's going on here?
It's because it's not getting an answer. There is an error telling us that it expects true, but it didn't get it.
I expect true, but I got nil. Why?
Because there's something there. It doesn't do anything.
All right, because the method isn't even written, right? So let's write it. How do we write a palindrome method to check if it's a palindrome? Word.reverse. Right? Good to go? Cool. So let's test. That one line of code. Let's test. Let's test that one line of code. Cool.
That's great.
One example, 0 failures. Money. Right? So what color is this? Wait, was that clapping? I don't know. Cool. What color is this? Green, right? So what color was this?
Bad red.
Yeah, bad red. That's the new Crayola color. So,
What's money green?
and this is money green. I had a Sentra in high school, and it was money green, and I never looked back. Anyways, so this is what is known in testing and in development called the red-green refactor cycle. So first, right, I just write a test. I make sure it fails, because, I mean, it shouldn't really pass, right? And then I write the code to make it green. And if I can, I go back to my code and go, wow, that was really dirty. I shouldn't have set an empty array, .eached it, pushed it to the empty array, and then returned that new array, because then I can just use .map or something, right? So I do the refactor. Here, this is like really clean, sexy code, so there's no refactoring to be done, right? I can't really make this any cleaner, right? So red, green, refactor, right? And now I'm done with all my tests, right? Boom, got true, hundo p, done Zeno. No? Is there more to this? Anybody? Besides Gardner? Anyone else? All right. That's cool. Let's think, right? Which questions?
I might be looking ahead, but is there a way we can show what test is passing? Like what criteria is passing? Now, like back to using learn, it shows
Yeah, there are flags. There are flags that you can put RSpec dash, and then there are flags that you can set to help you see. So if I put RSpec dash help, that should give me all the flags that I can run with RSpec, and it'll tell me, right? So I used init already, and then if I want to see only the failures, because eventually I'm going to have like 30, 40, 50 tests. Now I don't want all of them to run, only just the ones that I failed to spit back at me, right? And then see, like, you can see the trace, you can see the format, you can see the fail fast, which I think some of you have used already, -f, -sf, right? I'm sorry, -f, -f. That's what the fail fast is, and then there's a description of it, all right? So yes, you could like set the flags to see everything if you wanted to. You got a question, Andrew?
Well, you were asking what the next step could be.
Yeah.
I would guess that is it that we want to be able to incorporate spaces and stuff into our method?
I love where your head's at, because people are starting to see like a man, a plan, canal, Panama is like one of the longer palindromes, right? You know what I'm talking about? If you don't know, just write it out and then just be like, whoa. All right, so. Yes, exactly, right? But before we get there, right, let's start thinking algorithmically, right? Let's start thinking in terms of like a good checklist and a good order to follow. First thing I want to do is I want to write a test, right, that I'm 100% sure is going to pass, like race car or poop, right? They should pass, because that's exactly what I want my method to do, right? So once I have a test that is sure to pass, I also want to make sure that if I feed in garbage, it doesn't return true by accident, right? So we can always do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, boom. And then should be false if input is definitely not a palindrome. So what is definitely not a palindrome?
Space. True. Cough. Palindrome.
Cough, right? Very good, right? So expect cough to be false, right? Pretty simple. That was what? Just a few lines of code? What should I do now? Yes, please. You guys have all the right answers here. And then I ask you what's going on with your labs. And you're like, I wrote all this code. I'm like, do you test it? I am now. Cool. So I passed, meaning that my assertion is correct, right? And what it is that I'm expecting is in fact true. So some general guidelines when you're writing RSpec tests is I want to definitely make sure, one, can I get it to return what I want it to return, right? True or false? Is it not going to give me any false positives, right? Like, do I basically want to not run into, like, the pregnancy test problem, right? You know what I'm saying? A little delay on that one? All right, it's fine. Thank you. I'm here all week. So, the next thing is, right, we want to start thinking about what is known as space complexity. And space complexity does not refer to spaces. Right? Space complexity refers to a concept, right, in regards to actual length, right? In the same way that, what is an empty string? Can someone pass in an empty string into my method? And what does dot reverse on empty string give you? Empty string. So is empty string equal to empty string? Is empty string a palindrome in real life? No, right? Like a not word can't be itself reversed, right? That even sounded wrong in English, right? But what will Ruby do? Ruby will say that's definitely true, and it's not. So how do we go about fixing that, right? Let's see. Should be false if the input is what? An empty string? Something like that? So what's going on here? I wrote some sweet code, but let me test my assumptions. I expect false, because that's what I wrote, but I got true. So now I'm in, again, that red-green refactor cycle, right? So I hit green here, now I'm back in red. Now I need to refactor, I need to write some code, right? These tests are driving how I'm writing my code. They're literally helping me develop. So how can we protect against this?
Just check doing if statement just to check that the length of the string is longer than, I'd say even 0 or 1, right? So it'd have to be 2 or more.
If the word dot length is greater than 1? Greater than equal to 1?
1.
No,
Say
greater than
3.
You can't have a 2-letter word.
You can. An. A-N.
AA is a palindrome.
Yeah, and I is a word, of course. But
Yeah.
We're not checking if it's a word, we're just checking if it's a palindrome.
So who agrees with this code, or like who wants to change it, who wants to write it? This is cool? If the word is greater than 1 or equal to 1?
Can we have a one-letter word though?
Are there one-letter words? Like
So are they palindromes?
I,
Are they,
A?
Are they considered palindromes though?
Are they? That's for you as a developer to decide, right? Based on the app that you're building, and then ultimately your favorite person in the entire world, the client. They are so great. Just so great. So, is this cool so far? You want to try it? Huh?
What if it's not?
Well,
What if it doesn't do conditional?
who knows? But I wrote some sweet code. Now I want to test it. I still failed. I got nil this time. Different error. I'm still in red. Let's make it work. What do we do?
Else false.
Okay. What was that? What does that look like? Else? False? Yeah? Cool. Let's do that. Oh, bam, green. Money. All right. So that was the red-green cycle. What's the refactor look like?
Make it a ternary.
Or, yeah, we can make it a ternary. All right.
Ternary as well. I think we make it.
And who is the master of ternaries?
Brian,
Tell me.
there.
Let's convert.
Just your word equal to word dot reverse is your true,
Okay,
right?
sure.
The word is empty, and return that colon false. Now,
Like this?
On the other side of the word reverse.
Say again. Tell me where you would write
After
it.
word dot reverse,
Uh-huh.
colon false. Get rid of the else,
Like this?
and then second false.
This?
Well, you get rid of the if at the end as well.
Cool, 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 cool. Like this? I'm just kidding. So if word dot empty, I'm sorry, I'll just kill this.
Not if.
Like this?
Like that.
All right, let's test. Syntax error, unexpected keyword end. Cool, okay. It's bizarre.
Do one line. And let's say you
Show me. Tell me.
delete all the way up to that. And then you need another question mark in between the condition and the true statement.
Like this, right? So this is the condition, right? And if it is true, do this. Otherwise, do this, right? So this right here is the condition block, right? This is what makes it a ternary, because we ask it.
Do you have to end your condition if it ends with a question mark in parentheses? Because I've run into issues where if you end it with a question mark, it just doesn't work.
Test it.
1 second, 1 second. So that's the condition in parentheses, right? This makes it a ternary, and this is what it does if it's true, and this is what it does if it's false, which is just hard code false, right? Does everyone make sense? What was your question?
I'm saying that sometimes when I run it without parentheses there, and just like back to back, it still wouldn't work.
What's going on? You want this? Is that what you're saying? What's going on?
You're asking if it's
Yeah, you're
empty
asking
and
if
if it says.
What's
Sorry, go
the-
ahead.
No, I think we're gonna say
True.
something.
Yeah.
Are you negating it? Yeah,
Hmm?
Are you negating it?
Yeah. Yeah. So how do I write it?
So erase the brackets and only put one question.
One question mark?
You need the conditional question mark.
T question mark testing for true or false grading.
Put the fan at the beginning.
Put the what?
Fan.
A bang?
Yeah, that is the way to do it.
No, it was returning false because if the word is empty, then it's running the first evaluated statement, which is then going to kick back false. So that's not so empty is not the way. Oh, that's what you're saying, bang.
Yeah.
But
Right. So do we need this is the question.
Yes.
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 We need it.
The answer is yes, we need this, right? Because this is just the name of the method. The question mark in the first one is the name of the method. This second one indicates that it's a ternary, right? And this gets really confusing, but we want to make sure the word is not empty.
Can we just put false first? Yeah, first.
We can put false first, right? Which is why I didn't want to use the bang, right?
Yeah.
Because it reads better this way.
Yeah.
All right, it reads better this way, right? Is the word empty? If it is, return false. Otherwise, check to see if the words were reversed, right? So Eric, I like where your head's at, but it becomes harder to read,
Okay, Eric, I like it. One change.
right? Plus, 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 Eric. Questions on that?
When you're and how often is it when you're especially if you're working with data that you're not really familiar with what return value you're going to get. I mean, does it work that like as you build one method, you're going to be able to kind of guess what the next method's going to return, so therefore you test it? Or, I mean, do you kind of then build a method, find a value that is kind of in the general area where you want, and then you build the test?
I'm not sure what your question is.
What do you do? How do you build a test for a method that you don't know what it could possibly return, or what value would be desirable or true?
How do you build a method?
Or a test. But how do you build a test when you don't know what your methodology is really telling you, or what it could possibly tell you?
Your client will tell you what you want the feature to be, and then you follow the general guidelines that I'm trying to give you for your tests, right? You want your feature right now is to build a palindrome checker, right? Once you built it, you're like, cool, it's true, got it, right? Then you want to make sure it's actually working, so you test to see if it's not giving you any false positives. Then you start testing what are known as special edge cases, all right? The first thing you want to talk about in terms of edge cases is the space complexity, all right? And that is like no string, all right? Like it's empty. The next thing you want to test for is what? What's like another common like space complexity problem, potentially?
Trailing spaces at the end of it.
There could be trailing spaces, right? But we're not talking about just empty spaces right now. We're talking about like length. What's one that like really sometimes is like kind of weird? Which one example might be weird?
An integer?
That is a number, yeah. And so that's like more of like a wrong data type, and we will address that. This is a very common one. One letter, right? Like if it's like, oh, enter your name, and then you just put in like a single letter, or like I need you to create a username. Like you're not allowed to put just one in there, right? Or if I want to test this palindrome, is j.reverse equal to j?
Yes,
Is it a palindrome?
it is.
Is it a word? What if it's I? So there's like all this like head shaking, and there's a lot of like head nodding. That's for you to determine, right? You're the developer, and you determine that. You're the architect. So if the client's like, you know what, I don't really care, then it's on you. If it's like, hey, my app specifically should not be accepting this, then you have to address it, right? So if it's just one letter, needs to be false, right?
So a good example of that was we were allowing for people to set their passwords and have spaces in the center of their passwords. And then one person was saying, it doesn't matter, we're going to allow them to store their password as like 2 words. And other people were like, no, don't even want that. Well, I have to fight that. I know.
Yeah, it can get pretty crazy. So is this still going to work? It'll return true, right? Do we want it to be true? We want it to be false, right? So what should we do?
Word dot length is less than.
Oh, whoa. It's greater than what?
It's less than 2.
Is less than 2? Think about what this is saying, right? See, this is why the ternary is not too great, because it's really hard to mess with, right? So let's make it work, then let's make it sexy. So, cool, right? If word is what?
Not greater than equal to 10.
Yeah? We can always refactor it later, but let's make it work first, right? Does that make sense to everybody so far? Cool. So I wrote some sweet code. Let's test. Boom. Good to go. Now the next thing, right, in terms of space complexity, is going to be the clown, right? Just this ridiculous clown who wants to put in like this. You're just like, you're not even testing at this point. You're messing around. Like, let's slow that down. At what point do we cut that off?
String length, I guess, maximum length.
Yeah, let's set a max length, right? So if this, right, how do we do that?
And what's that?
Let's just say 50, right? If you've got a palindrome greater than 50, like, you don't need to be using my app. Just go to Applied NASA, become a rocket scientist. You got this. You know what I'm saying? And this is kind of what we're looking for here. Cool. Right? So really, as I'm writing these tests, as I'm just thinking about these guidelines, right, what users can possibly input, that's kind of where I'm seeing how I'm going to be writing my code. Because we just started with this. Now all of a sudden we have this. Right? So we talked about space complexity, right? Like no string, just one, right? And then like just way too many. The next thing would be what? What are we looking for? We're testing words. So, yes, right? The next thing I like to do in terms of like my outline is like the weird edge cases. The data structure must be correct, right? Words will never be integers, fixed nums, floats, or arrays, right? Like, can you dot reverse an array?
Ruby docs.
Not a palindrome.
It's not, but will that return true?
Yeah.
So I can have input of an array and still be true. Do I want that though? No. Right? So what do I need?
You can check word.class.
Yeah. Let's do that. All right. So palindrome. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like doing this poorly. Input is an empty string. If input is a single letter,
But it's not a string.
right? If input is a ridiculously large string over 50 characters, yeah? I just want to make sure this is over 50. Just spice it up there, right? I spelled ridiculous wrong. Ridiculous. Cool. And I copied that twice for some reason. Bloop. Gone. Should be false if input is what?
Not a string.
Yes. Not a capital S. That way we'll just kind of know I'm referring to the class. All right? So if I just put in what? A working, possibly, data structure. Yeah? So what should I do? Oops. Should get out of this. And then I should test. Cool. How do I do this? What should I do?
You should do another state encompassing it, checking if the word is a string or not, or you can add it to another and word dot class.
Huh? And then you want to and this again? Should we do that?
We should.
Does not equal string.
Does not equal string? If it's not a string.
If you want to.
If it is a string, then I want to check the word dot reverse, right? So let's check. Bet. Money green. Leather sofa. Got 2 rides, a limousine with a chauffeur. Nope. All right, cool.
Does sanitizing inputs include, like, say, taking it down to lowercase and then evaluating it, or like how does one do that?
Yes. So that falls under this weird umbrella of edge cases, right? And we can start really thinking things through, right? It should be false if it's not a string, right? And then what? It should be true regardless of case sensitivity. Yeah? Right? So let's go poop. But poo as in like poop, right? So P-O-O-P. And that should be true, because poop is definitely true, right? But if this dot reverse normally, will that work? I don't know. Let's find out. Oh, that blew up. Did I not drop an N somewhere? Bloop, bloop. Actually, I should read the error message. That was bad. Program spec line 30 syntax error, unexpected keyword end. Oh, embarrassing. I think I gotta drop that thing. Cool. So, I got false, but I expected to be true, because when you actually dot reverse this, it will not work, right? So, it's not going to be the same. They won't double equals, right? So these are like weird edge cases that we should be like looking for and testing. Any way to fix this?
Down case.
What?
Down case.
I'm doing everyone's favorite thing, chaining methods. Right? Here it's okay because it's very readable, and you can very easily debug it, because if you're having problems with down case, you've probably got bigger problems, right? If down case is breaking your app, you probably got bigger problems. So, check. Any questions so far? Oops. I just love that poop. Oop. Cool. Yeah? And then we could go on forever, right? We kind of talk about what if like the input is a string, but then you have like all these symbols in here. Would that be okay? Do you want that to be okay in your application? Right? Would this work?
It should work, because you're clear that it has to be a string.
This is a string, but it's a string of symbols, right? Like, we can go forever, but this is the kind of stuff that you really want to think about in terms of like that user experience, right? So right here we wrote a bunch of tests, and what those tests did was we tested those assumptions, we knew what we wanted, we wrote tests to make sure that our inputs and our methods will always work exactly how we want them. We can always write another method that calls palindrome, and then from there, if that new method breaks, we'll never look at the palindrome method, because we know that as long as these are all returning and passing the tests, it's not the palindrome method. It's the new method that includes the palindrome call. Does anyone have any questions whatsoever? Yes?
So could you use RSpec to check for just like variable values and things like that? Because oftentimes when I'm building out a bigger method, I want to see like the variable at one point is actually passing its value through, and I know you can do it through try, but you can also do it through RSpec.
You can do RSpec. Depends on what you think would be faster at the time, because you can write a test, see what it should be, and then it'll just evaluate for you, or you could just drop the binding, run the code, and drop it into it. So the other thing is, a lot of you right now have only been developing for like legitimately almost 3 full weeks now, which is awesome. You should be very proud, right? Some of you are thinking like, oh, how do I make this code better? How do I make this code cleaner? Like, am I ready to write production level code, right? Have any of you thought this yet? Or are you all just imposter syndrome is not like a thing for you anymore? That's very impressive, and I'm just going to applaud you, right? So you start thinking about all these different cases, right? And then this is essentially, eventually, where this one method, where it was so simple before, it was just a word equals word dot reverse, to be this. This is what I would write for it. Oop. Actually, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. So I would raise an argument error, and I can explain what that is offline. If the word is what? String? And supposed to all this? If it's not a string, right? Return false, and then downcase word. And then what's this?
Gets rid of anything that isn't a letter.
Yes. This gets rid of anything that's not like a letter. So even if your string includes numbers, or starts to include spaces or symbols, I just wipe it. Then I close it all down, and then I check it. And this is like the finished product that should pass QA. Any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, feelings? I will miss you all. It's my last one, you know, for you guys for now. But I can talk about whatever you want.
That G sub method, should we be understanding the logic behind it, or should we just know that it does that?
You should understand the logic behind it. This is not a complicated G sub.
What's going on there?
We shouldn't understand that.
Global substitution?
I guess I didn't explain it. Just stop it.